so as not so that I don't have to remember everything. That I don't miss anything. Okay, so I prepared many questions.
Let's go back just a bit. Yeah. What university are you involved with?
Oh, well, I'm working for an Italian university. It's Parma University. It's in the north of Italy, close to Milan and Bologna.
Oh, so you're Italian?
Yeah. I come from Italy. I'm just here until Christmas in London.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, I've been in Italy for the past 2 years of my PhD, and I came here as soon as I had the chance, because with COVID we have many problems, traveling and getting to other countries. So I took the very first chance to come here.
Are you married?
No, I'm 28 and I'm still well, I have a girlfriend, but no.
Okay.
I'm still free in that kind of sense. And
well, I'm very happy to interview you.
Well, yeah, I'm very happy that you agreed to this interview.
I'm glad we finally got it connected. I'm not too good on dates and stuff. What I remember is just what's in my brain, a lot of visual stuff, but academic type stuff. I did bring a few things to show you. Like this is passages with the dedication there.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. Oh, what is it for the guardians under the sandias? Yeah, so with all good signs for the guardians under the sandias. Bless you both. And then let's see, Tryptichs. For Lenore and Larry, wishing you both all the very best for your own good works, blessings, and much love. And sometimes, as you probably know, she signed with just an A.
Yeah. Well, I haven't seen any letters apart from the one you posted on your Facebook page.
Yeah. So. She gave me this once. It's just kind of it's been hanging on the wall forever and it's kind of faded.
Wow.
And I still have, we used to have tea a lot, and she gave me a teapot, which of course broke. I have one little part of it,
well,
the teapot. And we had Earl Grey tea. She liked lemon, slice of lemon, you don't squeeze it, and a little bit of sugar in the Earl Grey tea. Twinings, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And I think her scotch was teacher's scotch. Yeah.
Okay, so I've prepared actually many questions. I don't know if we will have time to answer all of them, but we can just discuss a little bit, and any kind of information will be very, very useful. And any images, as you said, any visual memory, anything. Doesn't have to be academic. I mean, just anything about Ann Quin, because I have very little information about her, just apart from the usual biographical coordinates, which are very well known, but there being no biography and nothing extensive about her work, anything. So every information will be more than welcome. So the first question I wanted to ask is very, very simple. So how did you came to meet Ann Quin, and what was she doing in Placitas? Why did she came in the US and in Placitas of all places?
She got the Harkness Fellowship at D.H. Lawrence Ranch in Taos. And by way of Robert Creeley, who was very taken by her book Berg. I assume they met in London, I'm not sure. And so she was visiting Robert and Bobby Creeley, Bobby, who's now Bobby Louise Hawkins, Bobby and Bob, and mostly she was visiting Bob. You know, she adored Bob Creedy in Placitas. And since I just moved to Placitas myself, this is about 1963, along with Ed Sanders and the Fugs and Allen Ginsberg and Ferlinghetti, et cetera, everybody in the world, well, no, not everybody in the world, the poets came to Creedy's house in those days. It was kind of like Gertrude Stein's play, you know, a place where all these people came, except it was Bob Creedy's patio, where people got together around the kitchen table drinking that almond wine. Ugh, endless almond wine.
With a magnet for poets and writers of all kinds, like. And so, what were your first impressions on meeting her? How would you describe Anne as a person when you met her, when you first knew her?
How British. Well, you know, I hadn't met that many people from UK, so you know, kind of the first thing a hayseed American desert rat person might think of is British, is the way she spoke, etc.
So you
and she's very good looking.
Mm-hmm. And what about her personality?
Who could fail to like Ann Quin except possibly Carol Berger, who didn't like anybody on the face of the earth? So, you know. Oh, by the way, have you ever heard of Gino Sky, the poet who lives in Salt Lake City?
No, I haven't heard of him.
Well, you might write. I'll send you his address. He knew Anne during the same period, and you might want to ask him something if you'd like. If you have time.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So yes, she was. She struck you as someone foreign. I mean, not particular. She was particularly British. I mean, in comparison with people in Placitas and in the US. I mean, she was different in that.
This is the Southwest, yes. I don't think I knew many people from England, really. I just don't think I did.
She brought.
Denise Levertov. Now, Denise Levertov was originally English, I believe. Yeah. The poet.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you if she ever discussed her general aesthetics with you. I mean, what she was trying to do with trying to achieve with her writing. I mean,
well, in general. I've mentioned some of this before. I don't know where, but she said that you have to be ruthless in your writing. With that, she meant really knowing expertly what you were doing, and excluding that which is not necessary. You have to be ruthless with it. I'll never forget that. I'm not very ruthless in my writing, so I admire somebody who is.
Yeah, she seems to me very determined when she writes, very direct, as if she was writing without any filter, you know, very truthfully, very passionately. I mean, not all writers are like that.
I don't know in which book she did it, but she would have all these, you probably know this, bits of writing on different pieces of paper and put them on the floor and get them in order.
Yeah. It's in 3.
Yeah.
There is collage of tape recorders and journals and dialogue. Yeah, it's actually my favorite novel from Ann Quin. And did she ever mention to you, now that I'm thinking of it, I know that there were 2 novels before Berg that were never published in her lifetime and were actually lost and kind of destroyed during an incident.
Don't know anything about them. Sorry, Jennifer might, but I don't.
No, so she never talked to you about these previous novels.
No, I don't remember.
And another, curious question. Did she ever discuss with you her literary influences? I mean, I know that she was, well, many critics kind of link her to Beckett, to Samuel Beckett. I'm not sure that he was a direct influence. Um, did she ever tell you about writers she was inspired by, or movements, or?
Have you seen that the list of her list of books that she liked?
Oh, yeah.
I did publish that, I think. It's about 3 pages of the books she liked and that she read. Well, that says more than anything I can say. It's a wonderful list. The only thing I added to this was Lord of the Rings, because she loved reading that. And in fact, she was really taken by it. And so I remember one time she put it down, she said, well, back to fantasy, as if everything she'd done was no good. Now she's got to write. I don't know. No, she mentioned her friends, Europe After the Rain, does that ring a bell, by Alan Barnes, and his wife, what was her name? Something Barnes, who died not too long ago.
Carol Burns, maybe. Europe After, yeah, I know. He was one of the novelists of the loose group of writers in the 60s and 70s in London.
And I was in contact with his wife, whose name is
Carol, right? Carol Burns. Can it be?
Carol, right?
Yeah.
She was acquiring letters, so I think I sent her copies of all the letters I had. I'm sure Beckett was a main one, yes, for sure.
I remember her mentioning the fact that when also the first 2 manuscripts of her unpublished novels were destroyed, she was mentioning Beckett in the same letter to, I think it was a letter to Father Brockhart Sewell. And there's actually many resemblances between some aspects of her work and Beckett, so I was wondering if she was a reader of Beckett and an admirer of Beckett, and if she kind of was influenced by him.
She certainly liked Creeley and Creeley's work. Of course, he's the poet, but he also did write a book called The Island.
So she was also a reader of poetry. I mean, she admired poetry, first of all.
There's certain prose writers who kind of hang out with and somehow get associated with poets, probably to their detriment. Because poets ain't going to get you any audience. Poets ain't going to get you any money. But for instance, the American writer Fielding Dawson, who's a wonderful writer, wrote all these short pieces. He was a vodka alcoholic. He liked Polish vodka, which he put in the freezer between drinks. But he was part of the Black Mountain group, the Creeley and Olson and Jonathan Williams and Ed Doran and those people of the Black Mountain group, and likewise, a lot of Ann's friends were poets because of Creeley, and had some of the spillover of all of his friends that he was in close contact with and interviewed and promoted, etc., etc. So she certainly met a lot of those people too. And the one writer she really, really liked was Amira Baraka, who then was Leroy Jones. She loved that book of his, And I think somewhere I mentioned her quoting it. I can't remember the quote from that book, System of Dante's Hell. Have you read that?
No, I'm not as an expert of American literature. I mean, but I find the list of her reading list on your Facebook page, right? Her writers she admired. And another thing, I was thinking of the typical Ann Quin character we can find in her novels. I mean, I always ask myself how she was similar or different from the character she wrote about. I mean, would you say that she was similar to them, or she write about people completely different from her in order to explore?
Well, don't you think so in 3? Isn't 3 pretty obvious? She was obsessed with 3. She was always hanging out with 2 people, hoping to get in bed with both. I mean, for God's sake, you know, it comes up over and over. So, I mean, I can't but remember the character in 3 that she would be like, but you know who I mean, not the couple, not Leon and Ruth. Is that right? Do I have right?
Yeah,
Leon,
yeah.
Ruth?
Leon and Ruth, yeah.
Yeah, the third one, that would be Anne for sure, I think.
Yeah, actually, another question I wanted to ask you was about this obsession with the triangular relationship. I mean, because it's actually everywhere in her writing, and she also told something about that to Brockard Sewell. I read something in an article he wrote about Anne, a memoir article, and with Anne telling him that it was a kind of psychological thing she had. I don't know, she was always trying to hang out with couples, and because she
With what?
With couples, I mean, and so yes, I mean, I was thinking if that was something that she felt in her daily life. I mean, this obsession with triangular.
Well, you know, for instance, if you're in bed with a couple and you feel a hand on you, you're not quite sure whether it's the man or the woman.
And that was something she wrote about as well. This confusion.
Did she write about that? I remember her telling me that.
Yeah, I'm not sure it was in some letter or in the prose as well. I think that there's some passage in passages about this, you know, this thing of being in bed with more people and not knowing whose hand it is or who.
Yeah.
whose partner.
Yeah. Maybe I should reread her work.
Well, I'm rereading it now. Actually, I read it a couple of years ago before starting on this research, and then I had to read many novels. So I'm into Anne just at the moment, and I have to start with Tryptichs tomorrow. Actually, I just finished with 3 and with the passages. Sorry. So would you say that she experimented in life the same things that she wrote about? I mean, these sexual experiments, these experiments with relationship with unusual or unconventional relationships, and this kind of behavior who kind of defied social norms and social taboos. Was it something that she experienced in her life, or something that she just wrote about as a fantasy, as a kind of fantasy?
There's a lot of kind of an S&M character to a lot of the visual things and stuff like that. Well, Gino Sky, Gino August Sky or whatever, he started Wild Dog, which was I had started a magazine called Duende Press, and Gino's and a friend of his started Wild Dog, which was another mimeograph, the part of the mimeograph revolution in the 60s. So he was around Anne quite a bit in San Francisco. You could, if you talk to him, you could find this out. But and just incredibly wild parties with, I think Ann and I were more milder, well, not exactly mild. We tore up the Thunderbird with our dancing, but she tended to break stuff like that wherever she went. You know, some people, she could bring action out of the woodwork simply by her presence. She's, you know, I think for the people that knew her well, as I think I did, she never leaves, you know, she's always around. And yes, also some of these incredibly creative people are they're craving activity. That's the way Creeley was. When Bob and Bobby were in, you know, and Placitas is a little rural town village outside of Albuquerque. And Albuquerque is the biggest city, which is not that big, in New Mexico. And New Mexico doesn't have that much population anyway. So when you're talking to Bob and Bobby Creeley, the conversation is like high power, charge, continuous, with no stop. Like you couldn't mention anything without a very interesting avalanche of an observation and analysis of whatever it was you're talking about. So I remember I've told this story several times, but it's illustrative. You know, I'm sitting in there with Bob and Bobby, and there comes a pause in the conversation, which is death to people like that. You know, I'm not like that because I don't have that much of a brain, for God's sake. I'm glad for the few brain cells I have left. But definitely pause in the conversation. Bobby turns to me and says, "Say something, Larry." You know, there was, God, it's like without this infusion. So they, you know, they really did have to leave this area. And then he was offered a great job at Buffalo. Some of their friends hardly said anything. We sit around, you know, you don't necessarily have to have a high-powered academic conversation constantly. And sitting around the table, well, like with Ann and Bob and Bobby and whoever else was there, it was amazing because Ann, of course, she's like that herself, really. You know, the activity, she loves spontaneity, and I don't know if I can remember that conversation. Something about one little tiny bit of one conversation. The subject of primitive man, and Anne says something about you know, well, primitive people didn't have to listen to a buzz, to the hum of a refrigerator. And Bob says, "I love the hum of the refrigerator," you know. That's just one little tiny part of it, an electric conversation. So yes, that and why she liked me so much, I don't know. I have a feeling, you know, she lost her brother, right? Didn't she? Brother die young?
I didn't know she had a brother, actually. That's something I didn't know.
I felt I was kind of, you know, I was a little bit like a replacement or something for that. I know it really bothered her a lot. And we didn't have a sexual relationship. We had a very deep friendship. Mm-hmm. She would have liked to, but I didn't. And then I met Lenore, and I think the very first thing she said to once I met Lenore and arrived on the scene was that there was nothing at all between me and her, and she blessed our relationship.
And yeah, and another thing I was thinking about was the presence everywhere in her writing of this presence of masks, of masquerades, of actors acting and performances. I mean, it's a discourse that is present in every single novel of her, and it is a discourse which is closely linked to identity. So that in her novel, I see identity treated as a performance, gender as a performance, and also the social role as a performance. I mean, husbands playing the role of husbands and wives playing the role of wives. So I was wondering if she ever discussed this with you, this obsession for roles and performances, for masks and theatricality of society in general.
Well, this is kind of related back to something you asked. Antonioni, who did L'Avventura, do I have his name right? The Italian director.
Antonioni, yeah.
L'Avventura, Blow Up, some of the others. She loved him. Now, most people find that those movies are, they go they're really long spaces, long things like that. She really loved it. That's back to you were talking about influences, and insofar as a mask, I think that the reason she liked me so much was because I was about the only poet at that time and continuing to now that use masks. And that's what I did in my performance poetry. I was going to bring one to show you, but it's in the other room. And I did object poems that I would origin of poetry. I called it making it little boxes of stuff. I remember for in each box doing a poem illustrated by what I did, and there was a mask in at least one of them. And so that's kind of stuff I was just beginning to do when she was around. Now, insofar as what she said about it, I don't know. I just discovered it when I read her writing, she has people doing that. Oh, yeah, there was this musician. You ever heard of Arthur Brown? I think you can find his records. In London, she went to hear Arthur Brown. His most well-known piece has to do with fire, oh, fire, blah, 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 blah. But he appeared in mask. He appeared in costumes, and she just went nuts over it. And of course, she writes me and says, "You would love Arthur Brown," so.
She was obsessed.
I don't remember anything about talking about it or why it ended up in a writing, but I'm certainly not surprised.
And I know that she was she had this idea of doing theater. I mean, when she was not was trying to enter some drama college or something, but she wasn't accepted. She had this idea of acting in her life. I mean, at a certain point,
of doing theater herself.
Yeah.
Well, she did. I think she did some radio plays. That may have been the closest she came to theater was radio plays. I think so.
Radio plays. I don't think they have survived these radio plays. I haven't come across them actually. Maybe they are lost in some archive or some personal archive somewhere.
But that's the kind of thing that Ann would just love. It's part of her nature is uh, extending the ordinary into the extraordinary or the unusual.
Mhm.
I mean, that would be natural for her. So that would she write a regular novel? Well, I guess Berg is as close as you can get to a regular novel that she wrote, don't you think?
Yeah, and it's not a usual novel anyway, but yes, it's probably the most
Yeah.
the closest one to being a normal novel. Yeah.
So that she would be the opposite of a formula writer, the opposite of a writer for money or any of those people. Her entire life was dedicated to the creative impulse that leads to something that is worthwhile, creatively speaking.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a part of her greatness, of her being so special as a writer as well. And I was thinking as well of this imagistic quality of her writing, of these passages almost psychedelic, these masses of images with image piled upon image, and with narrations that are actually that depends upon this accumulation of images for their working, and especially of this kind of hallucinating description of landscapes, of almost mental landscapes. So and I also know that she said something about the relationship between psychedelic experiences and drugs and writing. So I wanted to ask you if you can tell me something about her, the relation that drugs had to writing for her. I mean, did she kind of I don't know. Did she use drugs for writing? I mean, did she experience with drugs in order to enhance her creativity? Was there a relationship between drugs and Ann Quin's writing? Or
I can't imagine that she wrote when she was high. I could be wrong, but I can't imagine. Lenore and Ann and I took peyote. I don't know how many times. We you clean up the peyote button, and did we eat it? How in the hell did we take it? Oh, we dried it and put it in capsules. Took it, and then we did that at the Hertford place, which is where I lived. And one time she stayed next door, and it was pretty isolated and beautiful up there. And it's in Placitas, but on the outskirts. So, and then of course, after about an hour or so, you feel like you're going to throw up, and you might throw up, but then that passes. And then all the oranges and reds begin to vibrate, kind of intensify. I don't think that we really talked a lot about, I'm sure we talked a lot about what we experienced during the peyote trips. Insofar as acid, I can't remember. Was this too early for that or what? It was the same time. We could have done that too. I don't remember. I just remember that peyote trip for sure. Something like that, of course, would make you very friendly towards the pictures that are imagined while being high, and what as you remember them later. So again, that was part of life, especially in those days,
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure that had some influence on the way she cut things together and put things together and goes from one thing to the other. Plus, the way they talk is kind of lightning movement from one thing to another, but all very interesting, and it's a concatenation of really intense thoughts and observations. So it just fits right in that she would use that.
That was just part of her experience. I mean, it was natural that she could write about it or use those experiences to, even unconsciously, in her writing. And
at the time of that experience, you're not necessarily thinking, "Oh, I'm doing this for writing."
Yeah, it's just
living. This is living. So then, when the writing happens, it enters.
Yeah, of course it can. There's the experience before, and the writing is after. I mean, when you write it, possibly you write about things that happened to you. So if that was part of your experience, it was natural that.
And the writing becomes its own experience.
Yeah, of course. Like of a chain. Writing goes back to living, and living goes back to writing.
Do you have a drinking problem?
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
I just enjoy drinking, but I wouldn't say it's a problem.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes, there's also this question. I know that she was kind of restless. She was constantly traveling and constantly wishing to travel to change places, just as the characters in Passages, for example. They feel the need to change scenarios and to experience something different in order to leave. And so, would you say that her travels, that it had some impact on her life? How did her traveling change her? For example, coming to the States, or coming to Placitas, or other travels she made. Did she ever talk about that to you, or I don't know, her need to go away from Britain and to experience something different from what she was living in Britain?
Well, a lot of that had to do with how, the economic limitation of what she could do. She was always on the various minimum of where she could get money, etc. One time when she lost her typewriter, that was really a blow. The travels, I don't know anything about that because, see, I hardly travel at all. I'm just here. So that, my experience of Ann Quin just has to do with, she's doing all this other stuff all over the world and moving around, etc. And every once in a while she would check in here, And so that would be my experience. But she loved New Mexico. I know that. And especially in those last years, over in those letters so often, she talks about what it looks like, the skies, and how she would like to be in Placitas, etc. And then, but I don't know what governed her travels. She obviously she knew how to do it and to move around and to go places and experience. And I did meet one of her friends, man friend. Well, one of the couples was a poet and his wife came to Placitas, and I met them. And again, I don't know exactly what her relationship with them was. I don't know how intense. I guess it was friendship, maybe more. I just have no idea. But the travels are certainly part of the writing, just as, it was the way she lived, traveling so much. But I think a lot of it was economic, what she could manage to do, and sometimes it was in order, they were related somehow.
She would have traveled constantly if she could.
Well, she would get someplace, she had various things other than the Hartnell colony thing. She was there, and she wrote me about communing with a bird at the McDowell colony. She was really craving magic, craving that, and I think she really thought that things were activated by other things, and they probably were, I mean, it took me a long time. If the door blew open someplace, I was positive she pushed it open. Takes a while to realize that my imagination, that spurred by our friendship, continues on.
Yeah, good thing.
But that's why she liked me, because nobody else was doing this performance stuff in America. And I mean, I don't have I'm not recognized at all for it because it was all localized here. But nobody else was bringing their own light to a performance, putting up big backgrounds, of stuff handmade, stuff from my wife. Nobody else was doing a poem, wearing a muscle shirt made by their wife. Nobody else was making dildos out of cloth and making onis and lingams and huge arcs of cloth across the stage and reading poems while moving around like that, wearing masks or headdresses, stuff like that. No wonder we liked each other.
Well,
we loved each other.
That's good. That's good. And yeah, another question was related to this traveling motif. What did she think about American society and American people, in contrast with British ones? Did she felt more at home there than in England, possibly, or?
Well, when I drove, I had a little white VW Beetle.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't know what a VW Beetle is, do you?
Yeah.
The first one, designed by that Nazi. And I took Ann, two other friends, to conference.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill Dodd and oh God. Anyway, this kind of answers your question, right? So here's Ann in the right seat, and I'm driving, of course. And then back are my two friends.
Mm-hmm.
We're both drinking constantly and wanting to stop whenever we go by a bar, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was a pretty rough trip. Oh, it was Neil Nelson and Bill Dodd, both of whom were writers. And of course, Bill Dodd was kind of after Ann, and I think they may have had a relationship of some kind. But her reaction to things that we passed, we're going through Arizona and there are all these billboards, stuff like that. She was just found it really funny to read American billboards, like it would be a huge sign says body shop, Well, I don't know if you have body shops in England and Italy, but that's where you not get your body, changed, but your car worked on, for God's, when you have an accident or something like that.
Yeah.
So she was, I know you coming into, getting a cramp in my thought, coming into a town like in Arizona, crossing Arizona, there's, one billboard after another, it's in the desert. and all advertising various things, you know.
Yeah.
And she said it's like what did she say? Oh, damn, something like it's like a fun fair, something like that. You know, that, and all it was is advertisements, you know, going into a town to go to a certain motel or something like
Yeah.
that.
That is something she parodies in Tryptichs, for example. I mean, this she appropriates this language of advertisement, you know, this exaggeration of advertisement that she probably experienced in the States. And yes, probably that comment of her comes back in her writing as well in an indirect way. San Pellegrino, Italian water.
It's probably me, my thing. I don't know.
Now the Wi-Fi is very weak here, so it could be here.
Is Lenore there? Hold on just a second.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No
My
problem.
son he went to the dump to the landfill to take a whole bunch of stuff, so he just got back.
Okay.
But about the American thing.
Yeah.
She had since she consorted with really sharp, creative people, I think she probably had a pretty good opinion of America. But, you know, those of us in America who don't have the opportunity to consort with really intelligent, creative people really get to be extremely critical of all the bullshit that goes on in this country and this hideous, horrible increase of violence and ignorance and that's going on as a result of overpopulation. They already knew that overpopulation causes mice to go nuts. Overpopulation causes the human species to go nuts. And in America, you know, anyway, she didn't see, I don't think, really, I mean, I think she was aware of all the ignorance over here, but she was consorting with really sharp people, you know, I think.
Concentrating on the good aspects, I mean.
And after all, she was consorting with me.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, she found it the best in America. Yeah, it's the same everywhere, I think, also in Italy and in any place. I mean, there's beauty everywhere. There's it can be very incredible people everywhere and bad aspects as well. So ignorant people everywhere. So you have to be aware of both of them. I mean, and be with the right people and be aware of the others. I mean.
Well, you're fortunate that you have the ivory tower of the university, where there are a lot of these intelligent, creative people, you know.
Actually, I've been very alone over the past 2 years because they were all working from home. So, yeah, I was one of my friends. I mean, I'm not experiencing the university that much.
Yeah, it's transformed the entire civilization, this COVID.
Yeah. But I like it. I mean, I like to mix with people outside university. I don't like to be locked in this ivory tower.
Yeah.
I think one has to experience the world at large, not just a small portion of it.
Yeah.
And I think my final question is much more delicate question, possibly more disturbing. It was about her mental issues. And her relationship with psychiatrists and psychologists. I wanted to ask you
a relationship with what?
With psychiatrists and psychologists and all these institutions. I mean, was she?
You mean, when she was in London during her last years? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. The experiences she had with mental institutions and mental treatment. I mean, what did she think about it? Was she aware of some mental issues with her, or did she think it was just something that was imposed on her from the outside? I mean,
No, I don't know. The last few letters I got from her, um, all I can say is what she said, but I really didn't know the nature of her illness. What got her into an institution? I don't know. Did she have? Maybe you know. I don't know. Maybe Jennifer knows. I don't know. But she wrote that when she took her drugs, she couldn't write. And for her not to write is pretty bad. So she would have to get off the drugs, and then whatever it was that would cause her psychological problems and pain would reoccur, evidently. That's what from her statement, saying that that's the problem. Without my drugs, I mean, that's what she said. So, what are you going to do if your drugs just keep you from writing, and you've got to write? So you got to get off the drugs and hope that whatever things occurred, whatever, I don't know. I wasn't there.
It was not something that was.
I never noticed anything like that. She just seemed like an incredibly sharp, wonderful person to me, fellow writer. Except she wrote prose and I wrote poetry. So, and we were friends. I never observed anything. I mean, I was much freakier than she was. No, I don't know about that. I think we had equal freak.
Yeah.
So that's it, huh?
Yeah, it was just my curiosity. I mean, because I read her letters and the writing. I mean, I don't know. It's something that strikes me as absurd. I mean, this final years of her life, this issues she had, and I mean, she doesn't strike me as some crazy person or something. I mean, it was pretty strange to read of her final years, of her issues with mental institutions, etc. So I was kind of asking myself if she did have any sort of issues when she was younger. I don't know. Probably, I don't know if you know anything about her childhood, her possible traumas she had during her childhood. I mean, I know that she had a very difficult family history. For example, that her father left when she was very young. I don't know if that is something that caused something in her. I don't know if she ever discussed it or tell anyone about that. I don't know.
Well, again, I never really noticed. I mean, one time we were always looking for action, so we drove miles and miles and miles and miles on this dirt road to go to this bar called the Mine Shaft in Cerrillos, New Mexico. And got there and the bar was closed.
Oh my.
Well, we just turned around and came back, I felt really bad about that. because I thought the bar would be open, but one time we went to Albuquerque, and we were just driving down the street in the evening, and there's all this music and everything, and somebody in somebody's house, they were having a big party, and there was a lot of big room where everybody was dancing. We just joined them, didn't know anybody there. So I don't know. I don't know the nature of her mental illness. I assume that she needed something to stabilize herself from depression. Isn't that primarily one of the main things? Is just severe depression, especially for a writer. And it's I don't think she got a lot of notice, did she, during her life?
You mean critical notice? And no, well, she was praised for Berg, and she got prizes for her novels. But yes, she was always kind of avant-garde, so that was not a good time for avant-garde writers in Britain at the time. I mean, during the 60s and 70s. So yeah, she remained.
There was no way for her to make any money.
Yeah, of course.
I don't know what her job was.
Oh, she did very
secretarial jobs, didn't she?
Yeah, she was secretary, and she worked at cafes and something. They were just a way to make money and write parallel to that. They were sure not careers or anything.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I hope that helps you out. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. I think we discussed many things, and we'll go again over the recording of our conversation and write everything down. And well, it was a real pleasure talking to you about Anne. Okay. And yeah, I hope she is going to be recognized more in the world in the future. I hope that I will make my very small contribution to to her memory, to her image.
Yeah. Okay, would you please pronounce your name again?
Oh, it's Daniele.
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 Yes.
Daniele. Okay, it was a pleasure to meet you. You take care of yourself.
You too.
Take care.
Thank you very much. Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.